I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change.
Huge reaction to the two docs we had on at the top of the show, Dan Erickson and Artan Masihi. Well, YouTube just took down their viral video challenging the COVID narrative when it comes to what's happening in California especially. Ironically, this is exactly what they warned about, that this isn't about science, this is about control, and in this case, control of a narrative. We should have seen it coming. YouTube CEO was on CNN 8 days ago saying, quote, anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. Removal is another really important part of our policy. Well, if you aren't worried about censorship in this country, you better be now. It's not the government doing it, but something that controls so much of the dialogue is fairly close to the kind of censorship I never thought we'd see in this country. That is truly terrifying.
Now, to provide a little bit more clarity into exactly how and why Bill Gates wields so much influence, not only here in the United States, but globally, I wanted to share with you this mainstream article from Politico. Now, this is not some kooky conspiracy site, okay? This is a very mainstream publication, and it's titled, Meet the World's Most Powerful Doctor, Bill Gates. Now, just to be clear, Bill Gates is not actually a doctor, but I'm going to read a few very telling excerpts from this article. And the very first sentence of this article is, some billionaires are satisfied with buying themselves an island. Bill Gates got a United Nations Health Agency in Geneva. The very first paragraph reads, over the past decade, the world's richest man has become the World Health Organization's second biggest donor, second only to the United States, and just above the United Kingdom. This largesse gives him outsized influence over its agenda, one that could grow as the US and the UK threaten to cut funding if the agency doesn't make a better investment case. What could possibly be a better investment case than a global health pandemic? Exactly what Gates was warning of in his 2015 TED Talk. So right out of the gate, the mainstream Political article is saying that Bill Gates basically bought the World Health Organization.
YouTube CEO was on CNN 8 days ago saying, quote, anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. Removal is another really important part of our policy.
So right out of the gate, the mainstream Political article is saying that Bill Gates basically bought the World Health Organization.
Quote, anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations.
Bill Gates basically bought the World Health Organization, which of course falls under the United Nations. Now, a few more very interesting points from this article before we move on. Not only was Gates the first ever private individual to keynote a WHO's General Assembly of member countries, his Gates Foundation, despite the protest from 30 health advocacy groups due to conflicts of interest, was granted official relations status with the WHO. Unprecedented.
YouTube CEO was on CNN 8 days ago saying, quote, anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy.
Now, this article quoted 16 different people, and most would only speak on the condition of anonymity because of how powerful and influential Gates is. And they all pretty much expressed concern regarding how influential Gates had become over the UN body, stating things like, quote, he is treated like a head of state, not only at the WHO, but also at the G20, end quote. That was a Geneva-based NGO representative calling Gates one of the most influential men in global health. Now, the article also details how influential Gates was in selecting the new head of the WHO, despite the fact that Gates had no legal vote in the matter because only member nations could vote. And since Bill Gates is not yet his own country, he couldn't vote. But his old buddy, Tedros, whom Gates had worked with in the past and was exposed for covering up outbreaks in the past, got the job and is the current WHO head.
Anything that would go against World Health Organization.
Now, the article, it really is a must-read. There's a lot of very important information and quotes in there from people from the WHO and as well as the Council on Foreign Relations. But what is even more revealing is the fact that Bill Gates, who stands to profit immensely from this crisis, was pounding the drum very early on, for the World Health Organization to declare the coronavirus a pandemic, a global pandemic. But the WHO did not officially declare it a pandemic until literally the day after Bill Gates made a very large donation to a cause that directly financially benefited the World Health Organization by funding treatment programs that were partnered with the WHO. And then the day after, the WHO declared a global health pandemic, freeing up not only an extremely vast amounts of money that would most likely eventually make its way back to the Gates Foundation through his many philanthropic endeavors, but also allows governments much more power, especially to use the global health emergency as justification to lock everything and everyone down.
YouTube CEO,
which is, of course, crashing the global economy so the banksters and the governments can essentially take ownership through these bailouts and loans. Not to mention that Gates is also buying up large ownerships of companies right now on the stock exchange. Now, I personally think that they want people to become desperate enough to accept things that they would never otherwise accept. Now, it certainly looks like we are seeing a perfect storm, as the police have announced that they are no longer going to be enforcing many crimes, while at the same time, they've been threatening to arrest people who violate social distancing orders, and even more absurdly, doing all of this while releasing actual criminals from jail. This looks like the perfect storm is brewing. In my recent report, we took an inside look at Event 201, which was a pandemic exercise that simulated a coronavirus outbreak which killed 65 million people. The simulation took place shortly before the actual coronavirus outbreak had occurred. Now, in this report, I covered how Section 4 of the simulation was perhaps the most shocking, as the participants of the exercise, which included representatives from the United Nations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the media, vaccine manufacturers, major banks, and the Chinese and American CDC, just to name a few, discussed how it was critically important to control news and information, especially on social media. Now, one of the members, who works for the Monetary Authority of Singapore, even suggested it's time for governments to jail those who post fake news.
But one thing we haven't spoken about, and I'm wondering whether it's time to talk about this, is a step up from the part of the governments on enforcement actions against fake news, right? Some of us, these new regulations that come in place about how we deal with fake news. And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
Now, what is fake news? And who decides what the facts are? And who fact-checks the fact-checkers? Now, another member of the simulation panel, who is the Global Chief Operating Officer of Edelman, suggested that social media companies themselves need to be the arbiters of truth.
We're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over. They, in fact, have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone of accurate information. Because to try to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
The Event 201 panel also agreed that there needed to be a centralized source of information, which would disseminate the official story, in essence becoming the Ministry of Truth. Now, the panel decided that the World Health Organization would be most suitable for this task.
World Health Organization.
Now, Event 201 even created fake news reports as part of their exercise, talking about how fake news threatened governments and how social media companies were removing content, and how some governments were even shutting down the internet entirely.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
Now, just as the simulation itself seems to eerily predict the coronavirus outbreak, we're beginning to see other scenarios in the simulation come to fruition, such as travel bans, a negative impact on the economy, as well as censorship, as Facebook, Twitter, and Google, which owns YouTube, have all vowed to stop, quote, misinformation. Now, let's take a quick moment to compare some news reports. Let's start with one from the simulation.
Alarming news emerging from social media companies today about the CAPS pandemic. Twitter and Facebook are reporting they've identified and deleted a disturbing number of accounts dedicated to spreading disinformation about the outbreak.
And now let's hear one from the real world.
As we continue to monitor the deadly coronavirus outbreak, social media accounts are also spreading misinformation about the deadly virus.
As Axios reports, tech platforms including Facebook, Twitter, and Google are now racing to contain false information, much of which violates their content policies.
Do we really want social media companies deciding for us what is and what is not misinformation? Can't we, the people, discern truth from non-truth for ourselves? Shouldn't we have that choice? I see this as nothing more than a move to censor and control the narrative as part of the information war.
There's a post today from a doctor from Wisconsin. I encourage you all to read it. I'll share his story with you. It is exactly what we're saying. And he eloquently displays, he's an ER doctor. He says, I'm walking into this war zone. Our ICUs are empty. I'm scared to go to my own place of work. There's no patients. But we have people in hazmat suits checking my temperature as I walk through the doors. He's like, something else is going on here. This is not about science, and it's not even about COVID. When they use the word safe, if you listen to the word safe, that's about controlling you. At what point, who says what's safe? Are you smart enough to know what's safe for you? Or is the government going to tell you what's safe for you? Who tells you what's... As soon as they use the word safe, that means control. We know what's safe for you. You're too dumb to understand disease, you see. We know what's safe. And so they're going to use this model for different things. We got a bomb threat from China. Everybody stay in their home for 3 months. What? They are using this to see how much of their freedom can they take from you. And will you roll over and stay in your house? And it's working. And if you notice the way Americans are responding, if you go to any gun store in town, guess what they're out of? Ammo. None of them have ammo. I went to 3 of them. They said thousands of rounds have been bought. Why? People are mad. They're starting to post on my Facebook with their AKs going, let's roll. So what I'm saying is, let's avoid all that. Because if you stomp on our freedoms, that has one ending, and it's violence.
President Kennedy said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible only make violent revolution inevitable.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible
only make violent revolution inevitable. Time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us, even when pressed by the demands of inner truth. Men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. And I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
The rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. Let both sides unite to heed in all corners of the earth the command of Isaiah to undo the heavy burdens and let the oppressed go free. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking His blessing and His help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt.
You stay the hell away from me, you hear?
I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feelings disappear. You are someone else, I am still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. If I could start again, a million miles away, I would keep myself. I would find a way.
We are afraid. And we're all afraid of something else. Fear narrows your vision. Fear is black and white. Fear is what you believe, what you already thought, and what in times like these is reinforced and confirmed. We are afraid of refugees, of populists, of facts or of fake news, of crazy Americans or hacking Russians, of weakness, of strength, of more, of less. We are all afraid of something, but the only thing we need to fear is fear itself. The world is how you see it. So don't hide any longer. Show yourself. Speak up.